So this video is all about the norm and the dot product. What the norm is, it's actually just the length of a vector. So if we look here at this purple one, we see that it is 3 to the right and 4 upwards. Now we can just use Pythagorean's theorem to figure out what its length is because it's a right angle. Here that'd be a right angle, and this is the longest side. If we remember what that is, it's a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, where a squared and b squared are the shorter lengths and c squared is the longer one. So here we already know what a squared is, or what a is, we already know what b is, and we're just trying to find c. The notation for the norm is 2 parallel lines on either side of the letter that's denoting our matrix. So here it's just a v. Now to find out its length, we do a squared, so 3 squared, plus 4 squared, so b squared, and we square root that, and our answer is going to be c. So its length, and that is 3 squared plus 4 squared is 25, square root of 25 is 5. Now, we're not exactly going to be given a picture like this. Usually it's going to be in a matrix form. So here we have w, so vector w in 3 dimensions because there are 3 numbers here. We have 3, 6, and -2, and we are asked to find the norm, so the length of this vector. All we do is the square root of each of these numbers squared. So here it's 3 squared plus 6 squared plus 2 squared. That's 49. Square root of 49 is 7. And that is it for the norm. Now there are 3 properties. These are pretty self-explanatory. So we have the norm of v. So the length of this vector is always going to be above or equal to 0. And the reason for that is because any number squared is going to be positive no matter what. And the square root of a positive number is going to be at least 0. So another property would be the norm of a vector. If it is equal to 0, well, that means that the vector itself is equal to 0. When a vector is 0, it's just one dot. It's a point. Now, if I have the norm of a scalar multiplied by the vector, it is just the absolute value of that scalar multiplied by the norm of the vector. Alright, so that is it for the norm. And now moving on to the dot product. The dot product is when we multiply 2 vectors together. So we have vector 1, and we have vector 2. We have u and we have v. All that you do is you take the first number of the first vector, you multiply it to the first number of the second vector, and then you add the second number multiplied by the second number. And then you add again, third number times the third number. We're going to do an example. So here we have the vector 1, 3, 4, dotted with 3, 1, 0. What we do, we take number 1 times 3 plus 3 times 1 plus 4 times 0. We have 1 times 3, 3 plus 3 times 1, which is 3, plus 4 times 0, which is 0. 3 plus 3 is 6. And that is all we have for this. Where these 2 things come in handy, so the norm and the dot product, is when we want to find the angle between 2 vectors. Here we have vector u, and we have vector v, and we want to find theta. So that's just the angle between them. There's a formula for this. So u dotted with v is equal the norm of u times the norm of v times cos theta. If we rearrange this, we have cos theta is equal to u dotted with v divided by the norm of u times the norm of v. We're going to do one example, and here it is. So we have vector v, which is in 3 dimensions because we have 3 numbers. It's 1, 2, 3. And we have vector u, also in 3 dimensions, -1, 3, and 2. We want to find the angle between them. Because this is in 3 dimensions, it would actually be a lot harder to do just by looking at a graph or doing it any other way. We're going to use our equation. Cos theta is u dotted with v over the norm of u times the norm of v. We're just going to insert our vectors. So we have 1, 2, 3 dotted with -1, 3, 2. We're going to find the length of this multiplied by the length of this. First, let's start with our dot product. So all this is 1 times -1 plus 2 times 3 plus 3 times 2. 1 times -1 is -1 plus 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 3 times 2, which is 6. 6 plus 6 is 12, minus 1 is 11. Now for the bottom part, we need to find the norm of both of these. So the norm of 1, 2, 3 is the square root of 1 squared plus 2 squared plus 3 squared, and that is the square root of 14. Here we have -1, 3, 2, same thing, square root of 1 squared or -1 squared, it's going to be the same, plus 3 squared plus 2 squared is equal to the square root of 14. Now we multiply these together, square root of 14 times square root of 14, just equal to 14. The last thing we do is we divide our top by our bottom, so 11 divided by 14, and we take the r-cos, so cos minus 1 of this, and we have 38.2 degrees. Now this is actually it for the first half of the playlist, so the next video is just going to be a review. We're going to go over some examples that you might find on a test and stuff like that.